Antes de comenzar la conferencia sobre internacionalización, queremos darle las gracias a todo el público por su asistencia a las mesas de trabajo, las cuales esperamos hayan sido de mucha utilidad para ustedes y para sus trabajos. Asimismo, también esperamos que la feria de investigación haya sido la oportunidad para poder conocer los proyectos de las universidades y establecer redes de contacto. Ahora continuaremos con nuestra jornada, con 2 conferencias el día de hoy, y la clausura estará a cargo de la viceministra de Gestión Pedagógica, Susana Helfer. Para continuar con nuestra jornada, invitamos a John Bramwell, director de Educación del British Council, responsable de la estrategia global y el desarrollo de políticas de dicha institución. Anteriormente, gestionó la cartera de Educación y Sociedad del British Council para las Américas. Fue autor del Tratado México-Reino Unido sobre el reconocimiento mutuo y fue galardonado con la Orden Mexicana del Águila Azteca por sus servicios a la educación internacional. Él estará a cargo de la conferencia Fortalecimiento de la gestión de la internacionalización en la Universidad Peruana. Le damos la bienvenida.
Okay. First of all, let me apologize that I am going to conduct this lecture in English. Can everybody hear what I'm saying? Can you raise your hand? Excellent, good, thank you. I also have a second statement to make. This is the scarf for my home university. And I graduated at the university 45 years late, my problem. But I made a promise and I said, if you give me the scarf, I will put the scarf on the lectern of an international conference like this. And they said that if I do that, and they have a photograph, they will make a contribution to charity. So my university will pay to charity if I do that, as long as you have a photo. Excellent, thank you. Thank you very much. I will leave it there. Okay, internationalization. And the first question that poses in this session is, why would you want to strengthen internationalization? Why is it that we do this? And the answers generally are that we want to improve and extend the benefits to Peru from our international connections, and we want to build sustainable growth for Peru. I was here on the first day of the conference, and people were talking about the mismatch between graduates and the economy, and how it is important to grow the economy if you're going to grow the higher education system. And I can see exactly why that should be necessary. But there are risks. One risk of internationalizing your higher education system is that you get excessive regulation. As the government comes in with its own strategies for that higher education system, there is a danger that there will be more and more regulation. And the other danger is that the universities could lose their autonomy. One of the wonderful things about Peru is that your universities are autonomous. Okay? And because they are autonomous, they are diverse. I was at a meeting yesterday of networks of universities, and I promised that I would say, and I believe it, that the autonomy of the universities and the diversity of your sector in Peru is so important that you must not lose it when other regulations and control and strategic direction come in. That autonomy and diversity is a gift. And we must not waste that gift. But what are the national aims of that internationalization? In other words, what is it that Peru is going to gain nationally as a result of the internationalization of higher education? Well, we know that internationalization will help to produce global graduates. Graduates who are recognized around the world for the standard that they're at. Whether they stay in Peru or move to other countries for work, they are global in their thinking and in the way in which they do what they do. I won't go through all these in order. There's many lists, and you can read lists. I don't have to read them for you, but I would pick out 1 or 2 points. The third point down, to build enterprise and enterprise. You want to use internationalization to generate innovation in Peru. You have the potential in Peru to do so much, but you just need help, I think, internationally to bring that forward in innovation. And those who collaborate with you will work with you because they want to innovate too. The point at the bottom, I think, is critically important. Peru has the potential. It needs to unlock that potential now through its higher education systems. Okay, but again, there are risks. The first risk, of course, is that having produced global graduates and they're very high quality and that they're marvelous at their job, is that they will leave Peru. And they may leave Peru because they are attractive to others in the world, or they may leave Peru because there isn't an opportunity for them to exercise their knowledge here in Peru. But this is a short-term problem, and it will always be a minor problem in Peru, as it is in other countries. It should not stop you expanding higher education just because some people might leave. It's very important to grow and sustain that growth, even if some people go. And the second point was one that came up in this conference on the first day. You develop global graduates, you grow more and more graduates, better and better, but does it match the country's needs? We'll come back onto that point about the country's needs again in a moment. So what about the international focus of internationalization? All countries really have, whether they express it or not, they do have an understanding of why the country is engaging in internationalization for its universities. That strategy, if you like, is going to give direction to the sector and say, this is the way we want internationalization to go. It will provide a focus for funding so that the state and the government funds can follow and invest in the direction that it needs to go. And it will provide collaboration for Peru with countries that understand and share your mission. So Peru as a nation has a mission, it has an objective, it has a purpose as a nation. You have your place in the global community, and a very important place, not just in Latin America, but globally. And that mission needs to be reflected in your higher education systems and structures, and it needs to be understood by the world, and the world will collaborate on the basis of understanding your mission and your direction. And of course, it will give you the opportunity then to access international funding and further invest in your development and your growth. Okay? Another element of that international facing is that you need to align Peru with what is happening globally. The world is not standing still. The world is not waiting for Peru to get its internationalization and its system reform to be completed. It is moving on. And so your reform process is not about internationalizing where you are now. It's about internationalizing where you will be. And where you will be taking account of some of these global trends. And within my role in the British Council and with the colleagues that we work with around the world and in different countries, we have an understanding of what is happening. And I want to explain what some of those trends are right now. The first one is a very unfortunate trend. And it is about inward internationalization. At one time, the world thought that higher education internationalization was about all universities facing outward, looking for collaboration, moving students out to other countries, bringing people back, and so on. Unfortunately, just now, the world is going through a populist perception. In other words, there are walls coming up. Literally, in the case of Mexico, I think. It's quite interesting that when Donald Trump was first talking about the wall with Mexico, the Mexican people said, oh, no, we don't want the wall. Why would you have the wall? This is terrible. After he got elected, they said, yes, please build a wall. We don't want Mexico to be contaminated by what's going on with Donald Trump. Both are wrong, of course. The wall should not prevent people collaborating. And the USA is a vitally important partner for Peru and for Latin America. And it will continue to be so. But Countries are looking at inward internationalization. Brazil had a very famous internationalization program not long ago called Science Without Borders. That was a program that sent scholars overseas so they could study in international universities and come back to Brazil. They were going to replace it with another version of Science Without Borders, but they stopped. So now they have a program which is bringing people into Brazil only. China has invested in 20 new universities, or some of the old universities getting more investment. They want to focus on those 20 universities and they want people to come into China. India has the same program for 12 universities. They want students to come into India. They are less concerned about moving people out into other countries. So we have a tendency now for inward internationalization, and it's not healthy, I have to say, from my perspective. The second change is around what I'm calling regional hubs. These are countries that agree together that students can be mobile, academics can be mobile around their countries. One of the most active at the moment is in the ASEAN region. It connects Singapore, Thailand, Burma, Vietnam, Kuala Lumpur, and so on, all these countries around that area, so that the students can move themselves between those areas. They can study an undergraduate program in one, a postgraduate program in another, and ideally 1 year of a program in one and 1 year program in another, and so on, around that hub. So the hub has an equivalence of qualifications, and it has equivalence of study, and the students can move. Okay? It's not the only hub. There is a hub across North Africa. There is a new hub coming out in Central Asia. These hubs are developing, and of course the biggest hub is the one in Europe. The EEA, the European Education Area, as proposed by Macron in Sorbonne, will develop the same thing for the European nations. The good news for Peru is that there is a hub in Latin America as well, a de facto hub, if you like, because you all share the same structure for mutual recognition of the qualifications that you have. The British Council and other countries as well, the UK, will help people in Peru, universities in Peru, to develop programs within Latin America so that people can move around to Brazil, to Argentina, back here. If you're doing international marketing, you can do 1 year in Peru, 1 year in Brazil, 1 year in Argentina, finish off in Ecuador and come back to Peru to finish off. And that kind of structure is almost all there now, and it's all based on the mutual recognition of qualifications that exist between the different countries. So these regional hubs are becoming much more important. What you will find now is instead of universities saying, we want to partner with that particular university, they're saying we'll partner with that hub, because now we can partner with all the universities that are part of that hub, okay? The third point is that there is a demographic decline in some of the major countries. China is facing a decline in the number of 18 to 24-year-olds of around 40% over the next 3 years. India is expecting a decline of over 25%. The UK will have a decline of over 12%. What this means is that the universities in these countries are going to become even more desperate, concerned about recruiting students to keep their numbers, to keep their funding going. So that demographic decline is likely to generate a kind of false internationalization, okay? Where people will want internationalization simply to keep the numbers up. So there are concerns about demographics and what is happening in these major nations. And the final one is a more positive one about increases in flexibility and transnational education. In other words, people have become much more flexible about what constitutes a degree. You can go and do some learning in work, an internship, you gain credit for that as part of your program of study. Okay, wrong one, that one, there we go. Again, there are risks. And the biggest risk of doing all this is that you treat the student as a unit of currency. The student becomes a financial figure on a spreadsheet, okay? Instead of looking at the benefits of cultural connection, you're looking at the benefits of the finances for the institution. And that is a bad move. But also, if you open the doors to inward internationalization and you open up a campus in Lima from a university in the UK or University of Spain or whatever it is, it disrupts the local higher education structure. And that is also a risk that needs to be protected against. So what about the individual institutions? The aims and objectives from an individual institution perspective are normally around this. What is my university's international profile? Do I have an international profile? Do I feel that people know I'm a university and will come here? What is it about increased research that I could generate from international connections? I was at a university this morning where they do leading edge research and they do it in connection with various other countries and people from other areas. So how can internationalization improve the curriculum? If you're going to teach about a particular subject, are you really teaching the latest knowledge, the latest thinking about that subject? Does Peru know everything? Does the UK know everything? Does the US know everything? No, we expect to learn from others around the world. Do we teach in the right way? Is our pedagogic structure right? Or can we learn from international examples about different ways of learning and teaching and people's gain of knowledge? And of course, the final thing, can we improve the quality of what we do by internationalizing our universities? And these are often the kind of issues that a particular university rector or academic vice rector or head of internationalization will be thinking about. But for each university, it will be different. For some universities, research is the most important thing. For some universities, connection to industry will be the most important thing. They're all important, but there will be a variation in how important these are for individual universities. And that diversity is extremely important. But what does it mean as far as the internationalization strategy then for an institution, for your university? It means collaboration and partnership. But be very careful, be aware that that must be aligned, if you like, to the mission of your university. Be aware that collaboration is not always equal. There are examples of good, strong universities from the northern developed sectors working with other universities in developing nations and using them as databases of information. They will say things like, we should do tropical medicine with a university in Ecuador. They don't mean collaborate with an Ecuador university, they mean use the university to get data and then they will publish the results, not collaboration. You need proper mutual collaboration, so be careful that it is a partnership when you make those connections. You need international student experience. There is an argument that says you don't have to go overseas to be international. You can gain your international structures from your experiences within the university itself. You'll be in contact with staff from different countries. Your library will have books in different languages. Your events at the weekend and so on will be from different countries. Your experience will be culturally international, and you may not move from your own university. A good example of that in Latin America is Católica University in Santiago. As soon as you walk into Católica University in Santiago in Chile, you're faced with the signs in many languages, you're directed to different resources in different cultural environments. Everything that you do is international. You leave your passport at the gate almost. So it doesn't have to be that everybody just goes abroad. And indeed, sending people overseas on a mobility program does not guarantee that the country will get the benefit when they come back. For the individual, this is terrific. They develop as an individual and it's wonderful. But it's a very expensive way of trying to gain development as a nation, and that's why Brazil didn't want to do any more of it. And they've gone now for inward internationalization. Do you do things when people come back from these places? Do you have a diverse academic community? It's not just the students who need international exposure. The academic staff need academic exposure. It's not just the academic staff. What about all the support staff? What about the people in the student support area? Do they have an international focus? Are they culturally aware? And of course, you need a global resource base. Is everything that you're using, that you're working with, is it all international? Is it all global? Is it all up to date? Okay. And again, what are the risks? It's expensive. And you might have a mismatch in the partnerships that you develop. It's expensive, but it is essential. There are some things that you just have to spend money on, and that's the way it is. Okay? There are some things you don't get for free. And internationalization doesn't come free. You can try and make it as free as you can do, but in the end it's not free. But it is an investment, and it will return that investment if you make it work for you. Very briefly, this is how the UK, where I come from, is facing those challenges. We are about to release a new international education strategy which will feature increasing recruitment into the UK. I'm sorry that that's there. I fought hard to get it out, but there will be some reference to increasing student numbers in the UK. But we will do it by engaging with transnational education and so on. More importantly, we are looking as the UK to align and extend quality assurance around different other countries so that we can further develop our quality assurance methods, but we can share those methods elsewhere, and that will give us an alignment with other countries that will make it easy to do international research and to do international mobility. We will increase the flexibility of study. Students can come not only for a period of time and go somewhere else. We're talking about lifelong learning. What about those people who didn't have the benefit of a good school education, have gone into work, are very capable, very intelligent people, but they don't have qualifications? How are we going to get them their qualifications that recognize their knowledge and develop them still further? As Peru grows and grows further, it's not just the 18 to 24-year-olds. You need to bring the rest of the population forward. How are you going to deal with those who are at work, and how are they going to learn, develop, and benefit from your universities? You need more flexible ways of thinking about courses of study and ways in which you teach. And we will be looking in the UK to extend the mutual recognition of qualifications. If everybody works from the same kind of structures, then it's easy to make people move around and make knowledge move around. Internationalization isn't just about moving people, it's about moving knowledge, facts, understanding around the world. Again, the risks, costs, it's expensive, and the risk again raising its head of excessive regulation. And the UK will have to be careful not to make sure that it has too much regulation. We also have diverse, autonomous universities. And we are also very keen to preserve that autonomy and that diversity. So we don't want any more regulation, thank you very much. We want the right regulation. We don't just want more for the sake of it. So what then are the challenges that face managers of higher education? You are all involved in higher education. You have management responsibilities, I'm sure. And you know, therefore, that innovation is necessary for collaboration across different political boundaries. You know that it's not enough to say, okay, as from Monday, we'll collaborate with Brazil. Okay? It's not far away, but the challenges of collaborating with Brazil are intense for everybody. Ownership of truth. This is an interesting point. A challenge that we now face that we never used to face. In the old days, universities were the center of knowledge. The lecturers and the faculty and the professors, they knew things. You as a student would sit there a bit like a sponge, and it would go out and you would take it all in, and when the examinations came along, you would squeeze it all out again. And that was the way universities worked. Nowadays, people gain knowledge from a very wide range of sources. The problem is, unless people can think critically, analytically, with intelligence, they will not discriminate from what is right and what is wrong from the information they're given. Fake news, okay? Can people tell whether something is fake or truth? At a conference I was at in Kuala Lumpur last year, someone projected a hologram onto the stage, and the hologram gave a lecture, and it was being spoken by someone in the USA. And they said, we can make this hologram look like Einstein, and that hologram can talk about relativity to all the people in the class. And how exciting that would be for a student to be told about relativity by Einstein. And someone in the audience said, what if Einstein says the Earth is flat? Do you believe it because it's coming from Einstein? Is it truth? How do we know what is true? So university managers must be careful to develop critical thinking skills. Populism is driving inward internationalization. I hope that this will reverse, but universities have to stand together internationally against inward populism. We have to stand for tolerance. We have to stand for free speech. We have to stand for sharing of knowledge without borders. Because if the universities don't do that, who will do that? So you have a responsibility, every one of you in the audience, to maintain that drive for connection, that drive for freedom of knowledge. Very, very important. Because universities will be here longer than an individual government will. In some cases, you may be from universities that are hundreds of years old here in here in Peru. Here in Lima, there is at least one university that is hundreds of years old. I'm sure there are many of them. And there will be hundreds of universities that will be hundreds of years old in the years to come. You are in a sector which will always be around. It may look very, very different in 20 years' time, but it will be there. There will always be the need for higher learning. So you will outlast the government, and you will outlast the populism. So you have to be ready to keep those candles burning, okay? And finally, of course, there is the issue of the penetration of powerful nations. If we don't share knowledge, if we don't all grow and develop, there is a danger of a gap between knowledge, high knowledge on one hand, and lower knowledge on the other. And we do not want that gap. We don't want it inside a country, and we don't want it between countries. So I'm going to finish, if I may, on looking at how I think Peru might focus in the short term. Okay? I believe that you should use internationalization like this. The first thing that you need to do is to focus on Peru. You should use internationalization to help solve the problems that you face. What are the challenges that Peru has to deal with? You should express your objectives by the challenges that you're trying to solve. Your challenge is not, can I get my university to connect to the University of Oxford? Your challenge is, can I solve tuberculosis? Can I solve sustainable environment? What can my university do to solve the problems that are in Peru? And that is your first priority of internationalization, I believe. Your second priority is that you need to improve, just like we all need to improve, the quality of our higher education provision. Focus on quality. It costs money, but it is the most valuable investment you can make. Make sure everything works well as it can be. Engage with employers. Make sure that your universities are not isolated from what's going on in employment. In developed nations, some of the best research that happens in those nations is happening in companies. It's not necessarily only happening in the research laboratories of universities. So engage with the employers as much as you can. The next point is to develop your research strength by challenge. Organize your research not by what you are doing, but what problems you're trying to solve. If you do that, you can form collaboration and partnerships around the challenge. If you say, we have a challenge on health and nutrition, then the world knows that that is how they can contribute to help solve that problem, because other countries face the same problem. And their researchers are also working on that challenge. So focus your research requirements not on what you are doing, but on what problems you're trying to solve. The next point talks about succession. It is an unfortunate fact that at the moment, We all grow old. I am already ahead of many of you in the audience here. I'm much older than many of the faces that I am looking at. We all grow old. Your best researchers will grow old. They will retire, okay? Where is the next generation of researchers coming from? Oh, you might say, well, we've had some very useful students come in once upon a time. Have you planned for the succession? Have you planned for the next generation of researchers, the next generation of teachers, the next generation of leaders? Where is the next generation of rectors coming from? You need to plan that succession, and you need to plan it now. You do have the benefit of a Latin American hub. Share your ideas. Be prepared to open up. Hold conferences like this. Open it up across Latin America. Listen to the problems that other people have. I know Brazil quite well. It is growing at the rate of 5 to 6 universities every month. 5 or 6 new universities every month in Brazil, and they've already got 2,500 universities. Mexico has almost 3,000 universities. This is a massive problem for quality assurance. Okay? How can a government or anybody manage that growth, that scale of higher education? It can't all be good. So use the Latin American hub, not just for international mobility, but for understanding. How can we work together to improve that position? And finally, of course, I will offer the United Kingdom in partnership to help you with this. Our interest is the shared knowledge. We have much to learn from you. I have had the privilege, while my visit here over the last few days, to meet with researchers and leaders and people like yourselves in higher education, and I am humbled and I am honored to have had the opportunity to do so. Peru already has strong research, it already has strong teaching, you already have very, very good levels of higher education, and I have been honored and proud to have had a chance to meet with some of you in your universities, and some of you, of course, here today. And I thank you for that opportunity. You have that, and we would like to be part of that with you. We would like to share what we have, we'd like to learn what you have, and most of all, we'd like to give you every support we can as you go through this very important process of education reform. And we will do it not because we want you to engage with UK universities, but because we want you to succeed. And we want you to work with Latin America. We want you to be a success as a country. Gracias. Thank you.
Gobierno del Perú. El Perú primero.